Hello there, this is Agri Talk right here on KTN Farmers TV, and today we'll be talking about donkey welfare. And we have Raphael Kinoti, who is the Regional Director, Brook, East Africa, and is going to be talking to us more about this and help us get the perspective that we need to have as farmers in order to make sure that even as individuals we take care of these critical animals in our society. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Calvin.
All right, so let us just begin by understanding Brook, East Africa.
Yes.
What is the history behind Brook, East Africa? How did it start and what prompted it to start?
Great, thank you for that. Actually, Brook East Africa is an affiliate of Brook. Brook International is based in the UK. It was begun by a lady called Dorothy Brook in 1934. That's the period when the Second World War was taking place. So Dorothy Brook actually came to visit her husband in Egypt. The husband was involved in the war. And coming over to Egypt, she found a lot of horses actually all over that were used in the Second World War, but then they were injured, they were maimed, and all this sort of thing. But then nobody was really taking care of them. And so Dorothy, being a veterinarian herself, thought, why can't I set up a hospital here and then begin treating these animals? And that's what she did actually in Cairo, in Egypt, in 1934, and she began treating horses and then rehabilitating them back to communities. And so then that really looked nice and good. And so Dorothy now began soliciting for funds and setting up similar hospitals actually in various places. And then those hospitals actually would now target not only the horse, but then the donkey and mules. And because then these were animals that actually would be used in the draft power. You can imagine in those early years of the world when the vehicle was really not there, these are the animals that were driving the world. And so then fast forward, Brook began its work in Kenya in 2001. That's how then, in conjunction with an NGO, a bit of work began in Moya, but then in 2013, Brook East Africa was set now in Kenya. And so now Brook East Africa has an office in Kenya, but then the office serves the Horn of Africa, I would say. Because then we have work in Kenya, we have cross-border work in Uganda, we have work in South Sudan, we have work in Tanzania, we've worked in Somali. So then that's the whole coverage for Brook East Africa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now, as you have explained it very critically, yes. Now let's get into the subject of the day, the donkey itself. When you look at the donkey in Kenya, what is the origin of the donkey and how did it become an animal that is used to carry goods?
Beautiful. Actually, a great question. I always want to explore that subject because most of the people and most of the Africans actually don't really put the donkey in the right perspective. Now, let's consider the livestock that we have in the world today. Cattle, sheep, horses, and all this. Donkey is the only of those animals that was first domesticated in Africa. Actually, in the wild, while you find the horses existing in the wild in Europe, donkeys existed in the wild in Africa. So it is the only actually true African animal, first domesticated in Africa. So wherever you see the donkey in the world, actually, it came from Africa. So it is one of the real African animals, and that's how you see the scientific name, they will call it Equus africanus, because then it is the African species name is actually there. So we could quickly say that the donkeys were first domesticated in Africa, northern of Africa, between Egypt and Sudan. And in like 4 centuries BC, 300, 400 BC. And you can credit the donkeys with the initial developments in Africa, because then you know, if you follow the history of Africa, the very, very initial really development, technological development in Africa began in Egypt and those areas. The donkeys were actually the animals that were really, really highly used by the Northern Africans in that way. Why did they discover the donkey? Because the cattle were used a little bit earlier to pull things and carry things on the back. But then you know the trans-Saharan trade, all the way going into the Middle East. Cows will always want to rest in the night and chew the cud. Rumination, the scientists will tell you that. But donkeys don't need that. So they domesticated the donkey for that need. Here was an animal that actually would move throughout, day and night, without wanting to stop to do rumination. Mm-hmm. And so then the animal really was, proved to be very efficient in terms of really the long distance trade amongst the countries in Africa, amongst the regions in the world. And that's how actually donkey found its place. History will tell you, if you go to the very early tombs of the pharaohs. Actually, in 2003, a very big discovery was done in Egypt. They dug one of the tombs of the very, very early pharaohs. And they discovered actually this pharaoh was buried, and then 10 donkeys were buried around him. Because then in that early time, they couldn't think how the pharaoh will survive in the next world. So it was that when we bury him, then we must send him with some donkeys really to help him there. Otherwise, he won't have a way of survival. So really, this is an animal that has taken the Africa through thick and thin in the African survival, in the different really developmental stages that Africa has come through. So it's an African animal, our heritage. That's the context of it.
All right. Now let's move on to an issue that has been a major subject that is being discussed, where we are talking about the skin of the donkey being traded. So what is Brook East Africa doing in order to expand lobbying and community engagement in order to make sure that at least the community is taught about this vice of trading the skin as being a bad thing to do?
Probably, Kevin, maybe I put this thing in perspective, because then whenever I talk about donkey hide trade, everybody really asks me, why are you, Brook, and other entities against this? Donkey hide trade, the basis of it is, in the year 2016, we saw the first donkey abattoir being built in Kenya, in Naivasha. But then quickly thereafter, another one in Baringo, but then later on there was another one in Machakos and another one up in Turkana. Why is donkey skin having a big demand in the world now? Eastern cultures, and if I may put it specifically, Chinese medicine demands the donkey skin because of the Chinese medicine. Now, the whole story of Chinese medicine, everybody of us knows, is a bit complex, because then it is the same thing that drives the demand for the rhino horn, which actually is made up of the same material that makes your nails, but then is really used in Chinese medicine, and people believe you use it, then you can get healed and all things and all that, is the same demand. So the donkey skin goes to China and makes a compound called a GL. For a long time, a GL has been very costly, unaffordable. Chinese economy is developing now, is opening up, and many more people are getting out of poverty into middle class, and so they can afford it. And so the demand for a GL has skyrocketed. Today, the demand for donkey hide skins is upwards of 5 million skins every year. We don't have those animals anywhere in the world. China itself, by 1996, 2000, had 11 million donkeys. Today, they have less than 2 million donkeys, because then the demand has, just gone through the roof. China itself can't provide the donkeys that they need for their own consumption. Now, that's how the setting of the abattoirs in Africa. But then, one major challenge is that donkeys traditionally in Africa are never reared to be slaughtered. All of them, every donkey that you see everywhere, even the ones that you see roaming on the road, they are used by somebody. Probably it's put there to rest or to eat a little bit. It will be picked by somebody and it will go to work. So a demand comes here that needs donkeys for slaughter, but then we don't have them. You go into the countryside, you find somebody rearing 100 hens of cattle and they'll tell you these are for slaughter. You will never find anybody rearing 10 donkeys and they'll tell you these are for slaughter. Nobody. Everybody keeps 1, 2, 5 donkeys and they'll tell you these ones help me for water, for what, in my farm. And so that's how now the challenge comes. Because then when these abattoirs were opened, we saw skyrocketing of stealing of donkeys. A woman ties a donkey outside, goes to sleep, comes in the morning, wants to untie the donkey to take it to the river, to get water. The donkey is not there. She moves around the village, but then a few yards from her house, she finds a carcass of a donkey. Skin has been removed and it's been sold to the traders. And the rest of the carcass and the meat is left there, And so this now became a huge vice. And so when that happened, actually, as Brook, we began getting a lot of disturbance from communities because then lots of them really crying and asking, why is the government allowing this? And so what we simply did was to amplify the community voices. Yes. The community voice that was saying, government of Kenya, we really do not want this. And so communities came out, they shouted, we talked also to whoever was listening, but then we are thankful that the current Minister for Agriculture really saw the need to stop the slaughtering of the donkeys, and we are really hoping, and this I must say kindly to the government, that we are really hoping that the slaughter for donkeys will not come back to Kenya again, because then communities have suffered, people who are trying to eke out a living, to get, their life moving, have lost these animals. We don't have the numbers for donkey slaughter, and not just in Kenya, Kelvin. Between 2015 and 2021, 15 African countries set up donkey slaughterhouses. Right now, is only Ghana, out of the 15, that is doing very little slaughter of donkeys. For the rest of the 14 countries, they closed them. It wasn't sustainable. It is a business that has proven completely unsustainable because of various reasons. Probably, as we continue, I can talk some things more that doesn't allow the donkeys to really breed very fast and all that. We have a challenge because we're introducing trade with an animal that we have neglected for a long time. With the cattle, we have AI, artificial insemination, where they reproduce very fast and we can inseminate them and we can multiply them very fast. With the donkey, we kept it off the radar for a long time. Nobody did research on the donkey. Nobody really thought about the reproduction of the donkey and all this. And so when you want to come and mine from a production system that you really haven't invested any technology there in terms of multiplication and all this, then you're finding yourself in a big crisis. So really the whole world has to think. China itself has tried rapid ways of multiplying donkeys. They can't. And so that's how, they have come to Africa for this. So I think what we are saying as Brook is, this is an unsustainable business. It is unsustainable for now. We don't have the technology to really multiply donkeys for slaughter. And so then, if we want to go that route, we'll be injuring the livelihoods of so many community members who depend on this animal.
And now, also, you've spoken about the slaughtering of donkeys. Of course, in Nairobi, the butcheries around, the rumor that is always there is that the meat that is there could be of donkeys. Or also on the upper side of Kenya, donkeys are always being let through towards the neighboring countries on the upper side. So, what have you done in order to make sure that at least this vice doesn't continue? Because slaughtering, as much as we don't have the numbers, it still keeps on. Because I remember there's a Caldro report. Was it Caldro? Yes. Caldro report of donkeys. Between the years of 2019 and 2020, we had lost almost over 100,000 plus in Kenya alone. So what does this mean for us going forward? Because these numbers, if you can see from the report, they still keep on increasing. So what can we do? What is being done? And if the government is involved in stopping this, what are they doing in order to make sure that they are stopping this? Are they going, sending people to look at the butcheries and seeing, is this meat supposed to be, okay, so enlighten us on this.
In Kenya, actually, the law is that you can't slaughter donkey for local consumption, because then there is no butchery that I know that sells donkey meat legally.
Yes.
There isn't. So then that means if your butcher is not authorized to sell donkey meat, then you cannot sell donkey meat to unsuspecting customers. You purport this is cow meat or goat meat and sell to somebody. But then, as you say, actually, over the last 2 weeks, we have seen a huge upsurge of poaching of donkeys and slaughtering them. And I will cite a few cases. 2 weeks ago, there was a case in Athi River. A week and a half ago, there was a case in Kitengela area, where community members, actually, in the case in Kitengela, even the local people really did some demonstration, because then young men who work with donkeys there in supplying water and supplying construction materials, in the morning they find carcasses of their donkeys, carcasses that have been deboned. You know, the meat is gone. All the meat is gone, and it's just the bones that are there. It is illegal, actually, to do that. What we are doing as Brook is to help communities to really take more care of their donkeys. Because these thieves are poaching the donkeys, because sometimes communities get a bit more reckless with the donkeys. They don't treat them like they treat cattle, sheep, and goats. So you find those ones are really nicely well enclosed and things like that. Though, as I say that, Kevin, I know donkeys, especially for the young people who are using them in peri-urban areas, is difficult. We've really talked with them, and they're telling you, no, I live in second floor, I have a small little room, you know, this is the only animal I'm using. Now what do I do? You know, even paying for my own rent here is very, very difficult. Yes. How do I pay for rent for my donkey to be able to stay somewhere? But then we are telling them, look, you can join hands as groups. And so as Brook, actually, in this Nairobi, we are moving in areas of need like those and forming those donkey users and owners into groups, where actually they contribute money together and they can lease out somewhere and get somewhere that an enclosure that these animals are able to stay for security. And so what we are really telling communities is, it may be very difficult, actually, for the government to give security to each and every of these animals out there. But if you think together collectively, it is possible for you, actually, to sustain your animals nicely and well. And we can give examples. In Naivasha, it was very rampant. Donkeys were being slaughtered left, right, center, up until groups of young people who are using donkeys in Naivasha came together. And they identified places where they'll be keeping the animals, and there is a nice, good arrangement on how those animals actually are collected in an enclosure and actually guarded overnight, so that then they can be used the next day. So these are some of the challenges. Of course, community members will tell you when you go and report a case of a donkey that has been slaughtered, it's not an easy thing, because then we have community members who tell me we went reporting and we were chased from the police station. How do you come telling us things about donkeys? You know the whole attitude of, I mean, what is a donkey? Without really knowing that that household that keeps that donkey is the one that sustains them every day. They sell water, they sell, they move construction materials here and there, and they get money that really keeps them going as a household. So really we're saying, yes, we know lots of our police officers are very, very good with communities. Please extend that goodness with this animal also, because it is an animal that communities really use for their livelihoods. When cases like this come up, please take them seriously, investigate some of these cases. These people who are poaching these donkeys and killing them, please, they are denying communities their livelihoods. And so these are criminal cases that really need to be investigated, and the couple is taken to book. Yeah.
And now let us look at the donkey as an animal.
Yes.
Can it be treated the same way someone treats a cow? Can you say it can be treated like that, or even the same way someone treats a poultry that is they keep in their farm? So enlighten us.
Actually, a donkey is livestock, just the same as any other livestock. When you talk of cattle, when you talk of sheep and goats, poultry is the same, because then it is an animal that gets sick, just like any other animal. It is an animal that needs pest control. Cattle owners will tell you every week, if you're rearing your animals out there, you're supposed to ensure that you spray them so that they don't get ticks. Donkeys actually get ticks, and you're supposed to control those ticks the same way. Cattle owners will tell you every 3 months you need to deworm your cow. Same thing. Donkeys have actually internal worms that actually disturb them. We go out there and we find lots of cases of fairly emaciated donkeys and the young men really beating them without really knowing actually the major problem is that they have never dewormed that donkey. And so the animal is being sucked its blood from inside. While really you want it to carry a bigger burden, it can't, because then you've never dewormed it. And in the shops now, we've been working with pharmaceuticals. In the shops now, there are dewormers for donkeys. So a donkey, you can take care of it just like any other animal. You don't have to leave it out. Of course, I know communities sometimes leave it out because then donkeys are very hardy. They survive despite all these challenges. But then it's not fair. That is what leads to the weakness in the body of these animals. And so the animal actually doesn't give you enough, doesn't give you what you want, doesn't work as much as you want. And so the better way you take care of it, the better it can actually serve you.
All right, we have to go for a short break. We'll be right back with more information on the taking care of donkey as your livestock animal.